Tonight I want to do something with you that the old ones did at the fire in the last years of a person's life. I want to read your protection record, because you have one, my friend. Every person watching this has one, a long, quiet, invisible record of every time something stood between you and a harm you never saw. And here is the strange truth about that record. Almost all of it is unknown to you. You think you know your close calls, the 2 or 3 famous ones, the accident you walked away from, the illness that turned. But those are only the visible entries, the ones loud enough to notice, and the old ones taught that the visible rescues are the smallest part of the record. The true record, the full one, is written in the events you never saw at all. The turn you did not take and never learned what weighted down it, the delay that infuriated you, that stood between you and something you will never know about, the person who arrived in your worst hour, whose timing you called lucky, the urge that moved you, suddenly without reason, and you obeyed it and thought nothing more. Your whole life is stitched through with these moments, hundreds of them, and you have walked past everyone, because protection, real protection, the kind the old ones knew, works best when it works invisibly. The way the best guard is the one whose presence you never had to notice, because nothing ever got close enough to make him move. Tonight, I am going to give you the 5 signs that the protection was real and operating in your life all along. And I warn you now, gently, this video is going to change how you see your own past. The irritations, the delays, the strange urges, the lucky timing, all of it is going to rearrange itself in front of you into a single picture. And the picture is of a person who has never once, in all their years, walked alone. Stay with me. This is the most comforting truth I know, and tonight it is yours. The first sign you were protected is the delays that infuriated you. I want you to think differently tonight about every time your plans were interrupted by small, stupid, maddening obstacles. The flat tire on the morning of the trip, the keys that vanished when you were already late, the phone call that caught you at the door and would not end, the train that made you miss the connection. Your whole life you have read these as friction, as bad luck, as the world being against you, and you stood in your driveway and cursed the tire and the clock and your own luck. Now hear the old understanding, and hear the question the old ones ask that you have never asked. What did the delay keep you out of? You do not know. That is the whole point, my friend. You cannot know. The road you would have been on, at the speed you would have been driving in the rain that was falling 10 minutes earlier, is a road you never traveled, and whatever was on it, whatever intersection, whatever drifting truck, whatever moment of another driver's carelessness had your name on it, you were not there to meet it because a tire went soft in your driveway, and you have spent 30 years remembering that morning as the day the tire ruined. My grandmother would not let us curse delays in her house. It was nearly a law with her. When the wagon broke, when the weather turned, when the plans collapsed, she would say, "We do not know what we were just spared, so we will not curse the sparing." And she lived by a saying that I want to give you tonight, because it will change how you stand in your driveway for the rest of your life. She said, "Grandson, the Creator's protection usually arrives looking like an inconvenience. The angel rarely appears in robes. The angel appears as a flat tire, a lost key, a missed train, a canceled plan, and the protected one stands there cursing their guardian to its face, because the guardian is dressed as a problem. Count your infuriating delays tonight, my friend, the ones that made no sense, the ones that cost you something you wanted. You cannot know which of them saved you. The old one said, "That is exactly why you thank all of them." And once in my life, hear this. Once, I saw behind the curtain of this sign, and I will carry it to my grave. A woman of our community, a friend of my grandmother's, was to travel with 2 others to a gathering some distance away, a trip planned for months, and on the morning of it everything conspired against her. The stove trouble, then the missing shawl, then, as she finally reached the road, a neighbor's animal loose and tangled in her fence, needing an hour she did not have, and the others could not wait, and they went on without her, and she stood at her fence furious. My grandmother told me, furious in a way that woman almost never was, at the stove, at the shawl, at the animal, at the whole morning that had robbed her of something she had waited months for. And the travelers she was meant to be with met trouble on that road, serious trouble, the kind I will not detail. And the seat that would have been hers was the seat that fared worst. And my grandmother went to her friend that evening, expecting to find her shaken, and found her instead sitting very still at her table with the shawl, the famous missing shawl, folded in front of her. And the woman looked up and said only this: "I spent the whole morning cursing everything that saved my life." My grandmother said they sat a long time in silence after that, the two of them looking at that folded shawl, and she told me she never again stood at a broken plan without thinking of it. Now hear me carefully, my friend, because I must say this the way the old ones said it. Not every delay is a rescue. Most delays are just delays. A soft tire is usually just a soft tire, and the old ones were not superstitious people. They were realistic people. But they had seen behind the curtain enough times. One shawl, one loose animal, one furious morning at a fence, to establish the law forever. You cannot tell which ones are which, and so the practice is not to divine. The practice is to stop cursing. All of them. Because somewhere in the pile of your life's ruined mornings, my friend, there is at least one folded shawl, and you will never know which morning it was. Before I share the next teaching, I need to tell you something. I'm not going to be here forever, and most of what I know was never written anywhere. So I sat down and I wrote it, all of it, 20 teachings, 4 parts, in the order they were meant to be received. The ones about the invisible record and how to read it, the ones about the guardians dressed as problems, the ones I have never said on camera. It is called the native way, and it costs less than one dinner you will not remember. Scan the code on your screen or look in the comments. But do not leave yet, because the second sign is about the strange urges you have obeyed your whole life without knowing why, and when I explain what they were, you are going to remember specific moments and feel the hair rise on your arms. The second sign you are protected is the urges that moved you without reason. Every person watching has had them, and almost nobody talks about them. So I will describe them, and you will recognize your own. The sudden feeling, driving your usual road, to go a different way today, no reason. Just a quiet insistence, and you turned, and you never knew what the usual road held that afternoon. The urge to check on the child out of nowhere in the middle of a task, and you went, and the child was climbing something they should not have been climbing, and you arrived in the exact minute that mattered. The strange reluctance before the water, the trip, the ladder, the invitation, a heaviness with no logic to it, and you obeyed it, canceled, stayed home, said no, and felt foolish afterward, and never learned what you were kept from. Or sometimes you did learn days later and went very quiet. The feeling to call her right now, and she answered the phone in tears at the bottom of her worst hour. My friend, the modern world calls these impulses coincidences of timing, and it has no explanation for their accuracy, and the old ones had a complete explanation. They taught that protection does not usually move the world around you, that is heavy work, moving trucks and storms and strangers. Protection moves you. It is lighter. One small nudge on the wheel of your attention, one urge, one reluctance, one sudden need to turn, and the whole collision course dissolves, and the protected one drives home down the different road, humming, never knowing, and calls it a nice drive. The urges were the steering, my friend. All your life, the urges were the steering. And here is what the old ones knew that will serve you for whatever years remain. The steering still works. It never stopped. The nudges still come, and the only question is whether you have kept the habit of obeying them, or whether the modern world has talked you into overriding the quiet insistence with logic, with schedules, with don't be silly. Keep obeying, my friend. The old ones obeyed to the end of their days, and when the young laughed at them for turning down a perfectly good road, they would say the old answer. I did not like the feel of it, and they were not embarrassed because they knew what the feel was. And now so do you. The third sign you were protected is the people who arrived exactly on time. Look back at the lowest points of your life, the true bottoms, the season after the loss, the illness, the collapse of the plan, the stretch where you privately did not know how you would continue. Now look at who showed up, and more than who, look at when. The friend who called, not that week, not eventually, but that day, that hour, saying, I just had a feeling I should check on you. The relative who appeared with the exact help you could not ask for. The stranger, hear me, the strangers above all. The nurse who took extra time on the worst night. The neighbor you barely knew who noticed. The person on the bench, in the waiting room, at the church door, who said the one sentence you needed to hear that day and moved on out of your life forever like a messenger who had delivered the message. You have called this luck, good timing, kindness of people, and it was kindness. But hear the old understanding of the timing, because timing is the signature. The old ones taught that the Creator's protection has two hands. One hand steers you, the urges, we spoke of them, and the other hand steers others toward you. The friend who just had a feeling, my friend, was obeying the same nudge you have obeyed 100 times, and neither of you knew you were both threads in the same weaving. One person's urge arriving as another person's rescue, all across the world all the time, an invisible economy of nudges, everyone steering and being steered, and the old ones saw the whole loom where the modern world sees only coincidence. So do two things with this sign tonight. Look back and count the arrivals, the impossible timing, the messengers, and let the count settle the question of whether you were watched. And then, hear this, look forward, and understand what it means every time the urge comes to you. The sudden thought of someone, the feeling to call, to check, to knock. You are being handed a thread, my friend. Somewhere at the other end of it is a person at the bottom, and you are that day's messenger. And now that you know how the loom works, do not leave the thread hanging. The protected protect. That was the whole circle of the old way. The fourth sign you were protected is the dangers you only learned about later. These are the entries in the record that surface, sometimes years after, and they are the most chilling and the most convincing, and you have at least one, I know you do. The story that reached you afterward, the thing that happened at the place you had just left, an hour after you left it. The trouble that came to the job you almost took, the building you almost entered, the group you almost joined, the road you would have been on if the tire had held. The person you almost trusted with everything, revealed years later as what they truly were, and you sat with the revelation doing the cold arithmetic of what your life would look like if the almost had happened. When these stories reach you, there is a particular feeling. You know it, the retroactive shiver, the world tilting slightly as you understand that you were once much closer to the edge than you ever knew, and that something, distance, timing, a delay, an urge, a closed door, stood between you and it. The modern world feels the shiver and says, wow, lucky, and moves on, because the modern world cannot afford to think about it too long. Hear me. It cannot afford to, because to think about it honestly is to admit the whole picture, and the whole picture is this. If the dangers you learned about are the ones that happen to surface, then the true number, the dangers that never surfaced, that stayed forever invisible, is far greater. For every near miss you discovered, there are, by any honest count, many you never will. You have been walking your whole life through a field of harms you cannot see, and you did not thread that field for 70 years by your own cleverness, my friend. Nobody is that clever, and nobody is that lucky. The old ones looked at a long life plainly and said what the evidence says. Somebody was walking ahead of you, clearing as they went. And the proof is not in what happened to you. The proof, hear this, the proof is in everything that did not. And the fifth sign, The one that gathers all the others is the simplest and the largest. You are still here. Look at yourself tonight, honestly, at everything you have crossed. The years, the losses, the illnesses, the seasons that should have taken you under, the griefs that felt unsurvivable and were survived, the times you did not want to continue and continued, the whole gauntlet of a long human life, wars and accidents and hospitals and heartbreaks, all of it crossed, and here you sit this evening, in your chair, breathing, watching, hearing an old man tell you what it means. And I will tell you what it means because the old ones said it over the elders at the fire, and I say it now over you. A long life is not a lucky life. A long life is a guarded life. Nobody crosses this world for 60, 70, 80 years unguarded. The world is too sharp for that. The field is too full, and the modern person looks at their survival and feels only tired, only worn. And the old ones looked at a person your age and saw something else entirely, and they were right and the modern world is wrong. They saw a walking testimony, a person whose continued existence after everything is itself the fifth sign, the sum of the record, the visible proof of an invisible faithfulness that is held without one day of vacation for your entire life. And notice, my friend, what this does to the question that haunts people your age in the dark hours, the question of whether anyone is still watching, whether the protection ran out somewhere back down the years, whether you have outlived your guardians. Look at the record and answer it. The faithfulness that held for 70 years did not hold that long to abandon the post now. Guards who never once left in 7 decades do not desert at the end of the watch. If anything, hear the old ones on this. The watch draws closer at the end, the way my grandmother stayed nearest to the fire when it burned lowest. So here is what I ask of you tonight, and it is the old response, the only fitting one. Not fear of the dangers you now know surrounded you. The dangers are behind you. They never touched you. That was the whole point. And not guilt for the cursed tires and the unthanked delays you did not know. And now you do. What the old ones gave at the reading of a protection record was gratitude spoken out loud, and I want you to speak it tonight in your own words to whatever you pray to or wonder about before you sleep. Thank you for the record I know. Thank you for the record I will never know. Thank you for every guardian dressed as a problem. And then, my friend, from tomorrow, walk the way the old ones walked in their last seasons. And it was not carefully, hear me, it was not fearfully. They walked like people who had finally read their own record, unhurried, unafraid, attentive to the nudges, grateful at the delays. Because a person who knows they have been kept for 70 years stops asking whether they are alone on the road. They know the answer. It is written, invisibly, all the way back down every road they ever walked, and it will be written, invisibly, on every road that remains. If what you heard today stayed with you, the book is there. The Native Way, 20 teachings, 100 pages. Written the way I would speak to you if we were sitting together. Scan the QR code on the screen with your phone or find the link in the comments. Read 1 chapter. Sit with it. Now I want to hear from you. Tell me in the comments, which entry in your protection record did tonight bring back to you? The delay, the urge, the messenger, or the danger you learned about later? I read every comment. And if this is the kind of conversation you have been looking for, subscribe to this channel. We are not collecting viewers here. We are collecting people who remember. Come back next week. I am not done teaching yet.